Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped the load so long and so hard, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
All right, dude. Episode 51, the One Way Out podcast. Joined by Aaron Stevenson again. Dan's doing, what do they call that? Struggle cuddling? He's at jiu-jitsu, whatever. But yeah, dude. So a lot of wild stuff going on. We talked covered a lot of things before I hit the actual record button. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about this phenomenon that's been going on for a long time, but the clear delineation, especially on the right, pretty much only on the right, I guess. But I don't know what left-wing boomers are like. I have no idea. They're all insufferable to me. So it doesn't matter if they're 50 or 25 on the left. But on the right, there's a pretty big delineation, like you were saying earlier. Like there's 50 and below, and they all kind of agree and see things one way. And then there's the people that are over that, and that varies wildly as you get above 50, how crazy you are. Because I mean, if you think about it, that's extra decades of old school propaganda, where you only had a couple stream sources of information that they were just bombarding you with. You either watched Fox or CNN, or you read the newspaper or whatever, and that's just where you got your information, versus, everyone under that who, I think the internet got big when I was like, I don't know, a teenager, maybe like preteen. We had a computer in the house. You had MySpace and all that stuff, but information really started to disseminate quickly with the smartphone, with social media, and you can tell when you talk to somebody who's not on X or any of the socials. When you talk to them, it's almost like they're living completely different lives, like worlds. They're in a different world.
100%.
They don't speak the same language. They think that everything is like post World War II America out there or something, and not how things are today. It's a weird conversation to be in with boomers, man. I think Dan calls it boomer brain. People who still just watch Fox News and have a single source for their information. And the problem with the single source of information is, back in the day, there was a bottleneck of information, right? So the state only had to control a few different outlets, and then they had controlled opposition with, this is the left side outlet, this is the right side outlet. Depending on which tribe you want to align with, that's where you get your information. And they controlled both sources of the information, and they controlled the population. But, now it's decentralized, like all good things. And so when they come out and tell you, hey, the FBI says X, Y, and Z, that group of people 50 and above will just be like, well, that must be the truth then, because the FBI wouldn't lie.
And that has been the, I swear that is the worst part about it.
Yeah.
It's because for 4 years we were like finally at a point where it's like, 2021 through, 2025. If the FBI said something, like, you were getting some resistance.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh no, they're good again, because we've changed out like 4 of the, key leadership spots. And it's like, it's a 20,000 man agency. It's like, do you really think that matters? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. They live in a world where they trust the government. They trust the news. I don't understand. I mean, they're not aware of most of the stuff that we're aware of now, like if you listen to podcasts, I mean, any mainstream podcast, a Rogan type podcast or something, you would have heard about Operation Timber Sycamore. You would have heard about Operation Northwoods. You would have heard about Jeffrey Epstein's connections and all this stuff, and what that whole thing was.
Yeah,
the church committee. Yeah. Some of these people were alive for that shit.
And again, it's like, I can understand there's a level of, just propagandization or being propagandized to where it has a very lasting effect on you. I can understand that.
Sure.
We can. But it's like, I don't understand the part though where there's a cultural aspect to it regarding like looking at your younger generations.
Yeah.
Like what flipped me, and I'm not kidding, what flipped me was the way we were treating our youth in 2020 when we did the
Okay.
whole like school shutdowns and everything else. And again, I was still a Fed then, but I was coaching soccer then still. And in autumn 2020, they started doing practice again, and you can play some games every now and then and stuff. And I would ask the players, these were like mid-teens, like so mostly sophomores or juniors, like, hey, how's school going? How you guys been? Trying to cheer them up because like, everything sucks for them. And dude, like a lot of these were like talented young women too. They like stopped caring about, the classes that they were striving in. They stopped caring about XYZ. They all knew somebody that like tried to kill themselves. Like, and then I'm just hearing these things and I'm like, I can't, like, this is insane to me. It's like and by the way, that was in autumn of 2020. Virginia, where I was living at when I was doing this, they didn't take kids back to school until the end of the end of the school year in 2021. So like
people have already forgot that.
Yeah. And I was just like, to me again, I was just like, I can't believe this. And that's what flipped me over was the way we treat our youth, the way we treat our posterity is I think horrendous. And when I look at a lot of boomer side, they say things from their world, their lived experience, right? With a lot of assumptions built into it. One is a tweet from a guy named Charles Murray. I have no idea if he's American or British or whatever, but he talks about like, oh, this is, some guy, he quote tweeted somebody saying like, it sucks right now. And he's like, that's bullshit. If you have two working class, young married couple and they're making $15 an hour, they can make $74,000 or whatever. And I'm like, dude, young people aren't getting married anymore. Young men are not tying themselves anymore because we're afraid of losing everything. And then you got this and that, and you got, and like, what are you fucking talking about? Young married couples, like those are so small. Like those don't exist anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's his entire premise.
Yeah.
It's just like this guy got like
he's got boomer brain. I mean,
he's on this tweet. I was like, oh my gosh.
He's thinking of the world that he grew up in, which no longer exists. Right? Like they're just so slow to grasp change or to see the change around them. Like, well, my father was able to support a whole family working in a factory and we had 6 siblings or whatever. He doesn't realize that the people that are his father's age today have 2 kids, maybe. Like the birth rate is plummeted. I mean, that's not unrelated to the culture, the financial institutions, like inflation, everything. That's just all related. And I get it's overwhelming because it's so many different things coming at you at once. Like it's expensive to have a family. The culture doesn't really support a family, right? Because the support, we have a hedonistic culture now. So where were you before 2020? Where were you on the political spectrum?
Dude, I was so I was I didn't vote in 2012 because they screwed over Ron Paul, right? I'm like, well, I'm not, you can lose without me then, guys. I was one of those dudes. I was a libertarian where I was like, yeah, we just need small government and I just need, whatever. And then I was a Trump primary voter in 2016, a Trump voter in 2016, a Trump voter in 2020, and then again in 2024, right? Yeah. But, back then, like prior to 2020, I was a free market can work. We just, hey man, like everyone's got these principles and et cetera, et cetera. And then 2020, like it smashed all those things. And I was like, nope, we are tribal. We are globalism can never work because India stopped giving drugs and Germany stopped doing this. And like, I don't believe in that at all. I believe in nations and I believe in, the clash of civilizations is a very accurate term. I think it's going to happen. I think it's happening.
Sure.
And
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, this is kind of where I land at.
Yeah.
But and it's honestly the part that I think that's one of those things that has that divide very hard. Where I keep sharing the story because I didn't hear about it until today. But young woman, Kayli Grace Arseth, she was born in 2002. I was coaching soccer girls at that age.
Yeah.
Like the O2s. Like I was literally a coach for one of the O2 teams. And she was an advocate, or she was some kind of something for like autistic kids and for like, special needs kids.
Yeah.
And, semi influencer type thing, but like a very positive thing for young American culture. And a foreigner who is a legal immigrant, basically like, simped her on Snapchat and she was like not responding to the guy. And then he tracked her down and killed her. And that was on June 16th of this year. And I only saw it because of the Twitter account, ironically called National Conservative. They're not conservative; they're right wing. They tweeted it out and they were like, this girl got murdered by so-and-so who's a legal immigrant. And like, that's why they're saying like, stop talking about illegals. This is a immigration problem, etc. And I'm going to keep tweeting it out for a while now. And all I'm saying is Americans don't deserve a country if they don't act like a people. And like, this is what I mean. Like, look at 2020. We did not act like a people who cared about our people. We sold out to lockdowns. We sold out to states' rights. That's why they can lock us down.
Yeah.
We sold out to all these bad ideas for the market. We allowed, what was the all the bills? How many trillions of dollars did we spend in 2020 to keep people at home?
I know they printed $6 trillion from that.
I know
that bill,
too, right?
Yeah,
and it's just
yeah. No, I mean that was. I don't understand how more people didn't wake up during that. Especially on the right.
Dude, my buddy Chris, he called it within the first 10 days. We were still in that first 2-week lockdown, right?
Sure.
And he was just like, this is going to kill us financially. He's like, we're going to crash the dollar. He went hard quick.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, hold on, dude. Like, come on, man. Like, we can get through this. Again, I'm kind of, a little white pilled, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the third week, I was like, no, something's cooking. We 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Then they said 1 more week. And now they're doing curfews, and now they're doing this, and I'm just like, no, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't have to be a medical doctor to realize the lying, the fuckery that was afoot. I've been a libertarian since probably 2009, the Ron Paul Giuliani moment in 2008, if you remember that one.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what woke me up and became a libertarian then. And I was kind of in the middle as a libertarian. And then I've just been, I kid you not, since 2009, I have just been going right.
Oh, yeah. And the only way I describe myself is right wing.
Yeah, I'm not.
Like, what are you, Republican? Like, no, I'm right wing.
Yeah, wherever the Republicans are, I'm like a mile to the right of them. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm past the point of wanting them deported.
But this is an age thing, talk to when and I do this in Twitter Spaces. Talk to people, and they'll say this is not a left or right problem. Like, no, it actually is. We don't have a right wing. We have an establishment, we have a left, but we don't have a right wing that is active and mobile. But I think because they're young, I think it's developing right now. And this is why I do believe, if you've ever seen the it's a meme, but it's not the idea predates the meme, is the left, like, chimp out factor. It's like a dial where it's like 1 to 10, and you can kind of like 6.5 and 4.3 up to 10, but it does this, right? And the right wing chimp out factor is an off and on switch, and it's just like boop, it's off, and then boop, it's on.
People are shooting.
I think we're getting there because the younger generations, I think, are definitely, and I think inherently more right wing. I don't think it's conditioning which is doing it. I don't think it's social media which is making young men turn to the right. I think it's they're looking around. We all have senses. We all have instincts. As muted as they are, it's there. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think it's just like, now it's going to happen.
Well, speaking of that, things being pushed to the right, Grok had a interesting spiral out, I guess. I don't know what people call it. I just saying it seemed to be telling the truth for what, it's, I don't know if it's if it's a right wing position or it's an honest position, like if you take away all the emotion and you just, evaluate objectively the facts, who's 13% of the population, well, really 6% of the population that commits 50% of the murders. Like this is not an emotional argument. It's not so if you're an AI and someone's asking you that question, and what are you're gonna not tell the truth because of you don't want to offend somebody? It's like, no, you just tell the truth. And so I don't know what happened yesterday, but Grok decided to just start telling the truth.
Yeah, well, that was apparently it was one of the inside of its most recent whatever. And this is me being kind of stupid, by the way. But there was part of its not code, but part of its restrictions or limitations or like setups where it said like, do not don't worry about PC and don't worry about this. Don't refrain yourself. Be more whatever. But it's also LLM, so there is feedback. It's part of it. And that's how Tay's tweets first like went nuts, is because people responded to it and engaged with it, and that was machine learning.
Yeah. So he said the LLM is a language learning model, right? large language ones, and then for boomers which we're talking about, Grok is the AI system for X, or, formerly known as Twitter. And it's basically Elon's Chat GPT.
Yeah. And again, I don't love it. I don't use it all the time. Whenever I see a tweet out, every now and then I'll tweet something out myself, and I'll just hit the button and see what it says. And it always says, and there's a lot of things into it as well. I've noticed it's always your most recent things that kind of develops it, like the response to it. And you can always ask it, like, well, what about my full scale, whatever. I like ChatGPT. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
To me, these are all tools, and you got to learn how to use them. It's no different than I think any other tech from before. It's going to be the way of the future. Yeah, it's going to screw things up, but there are solutions there as well. So I'm not anti-tech. I'm not anti-whatever. I just want to make sure that we don't lose power of it and give it control to somebody that hates us. Yeah. That's what I don't want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you're one of these guys or these people that's a Luddite or whatever, like Luddites were a term from the turn of the millennia of people that were fighting, I think it was vehicles or something. They're like, example would be like horseshoe farriers, right? Like they didn't want the car to take over because their whole industry was based off of, horses, but that's stopping progress. And if you are riding a horse in 2022, you are severely handicapped for somebody who has a shitty Geo Metro or a little car, that can go forever. And, you're just at a disadvantage. And this is where you see a lot of boomers that refuse consciously or unconsciously to adapt with the environment they find themselves in today. If you can't use, like, it's like an old person who has the internet and their internet goes out and they have no idea what to do. Just unplug. Remember, the joke is I unplug the router and plug it back in for my grandma, and she's so amazed she thinks I'm a hacker or something. Yeah. It's like, no, she just failed to adapt with the times.
Yeah.
So I'm purposely, consciously trying to make myself not that person. Like I when AI came out, I immersed myself in it. When TikTok came out, immerse myself in it. Like, figure it out. You got to figure this out, because this is the way the world moves. If you're still handwriting your books out and there's a printing press that exists, well, you're trying to compete with someone who has a printing press, right. So you are going to be out competed.
But it's like, and I'm the same way, by the way, too. And that's why, and then people will say, like, oh, what do you want China to have your information? It's like, dude, I've got my fucking credit card on my phone. Like, no offense, the powers that be are going to get our information. That's just the way that works.
Yeah.
I also don't want Nestle to own the water, but guess what? They kind of do. So what am I going to do right now? You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And this is why, by the way, again, I don't like the term conservative. And I'm saying that from a perspective of, like, kind of literal, because at this point, what are we conserving? And so when I finally got fired from DHS early 2023, I finally joined Twitter, and I started going in Twitter spaces. And these are the conversations I would always have. The same people like, no, I'm not a conservative. What are you trying to conserve? Like, what you want to go back 30 years and you're okay with, or you want to go back 20 years and you're okay with the DHS creation? You're okay with the Patriot Act?
Yeah.
40 years, you're okay with amnesty? You want to go back 50 years, you're okay with the Civil Rights Act? And you can keep going and going and going. So it's like, I don't want to keep holding on to a losing ship. I want to build what I want. Like, that's how you get things. That's how you govern. You have to build what you want. Otherwise, it always goes away.
That's why I hate labels, man. They're never sufficient, sufficient. And they just shoehorn in a bunch of baggage that is just probably doesn't really represent you, but then you tie yourself to that. And now you're defending shit you don't even believe. This is why I asked you, like, where you were before 2020 and then to where you are now and what that means. Cause like, I used to identify as I'm not proud of this, but when I was a younger person, I was a Democrat or a liberal, and then I was a libertarian, and then I was a conservative libertarian, and then now I don't identify with any of that shit. I am right wing, I guess, is what you can call that. I guess it's hard to, like, to make a label for it. Like, ask me the subject and I'll tell you. But most of my things tend to line up.
So I think we're getting there, by the way, too, because this is, and I do think. Well, historically, I think, and statistically, we're going to hit the eventual stage of this republic where we do have conflict, right? It's inevitable. We've already had it. Like, that was 2020 on its face, was conflict. That was a very small glimpse, and I think it'll get more intense at key locations. But I think we mirror mostly the Spanish Civil War. which we're very dumb on. Like, we don't know very much about that. And I highly recommend people follow P. on this thing. But there is because again, like, you look at the Civil War, and like, there's a Republic side. Oh, I love that because I'm a Republican. It's like, no. They were the ones that were murdering and raping nuns and like destroying everything.
Why are they called Republicans?
Well, yeah, the right wing were called the Phalangists, and Phalangism was basically a convergence of like three political beliefs that kind of came together. And that's what I think will end up happening is you're going to have right wingers, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have your libertarian-esque people, your ones that, want to be left alone, but they're not being left alone, so they're going to join a side. And then you'll have your historical constitutionalists, your ones that want its old whatever back. I think that's going to end up forming a coalition eventually, which will be the opposing force to the ever increasing advance of the left. Sure. And that's just the way I see it. And I know there's a whole establishment thing, and I don't think that's going to be around forever. I do believe in what's called elite theory, in which the establishment will change over time. Just like you said with the Luddites, right?
Yeah.
Back then, I'm sure the fucking horseshoe makers was part of the establishment. And then eventually, nope, it became the car makers. And eventually, nope, it's more of the chemical people. Now it's still money and finance, but data,
tech bros.
Tech, exactly. Yeah. Those are guys that are going to be really in there. And we're seeing it already with Elon Musk. This is Peter Thiel. This is, just watch Nick Fuentes. He can rail through these things very, very intelligently.
Yeah.
And I think that this is going to be the most likely case, but we'll see.
Yeah, and if you fight against that, you're standing in the ocean with a tennis racket trying to push the water back. You can't fucking do it, dude. It's impossible. And you're going to be that guy. And there's been tons of those people throughout our lived history that tried to stop the shit that was coming, and they just couldn't stop it. So don't try to stop it. Try to adapt and integrate it. But there are some things that you like. I'm vehemently opposed to changes that have happened, like this whole mass wave of immigration, obviously the last 4 years, and really before that, but let's say the last 4 years where it was, 10 plus million, all in, quick shot, one administration. I'm very against that. So, I am trying to stand and change that. How we go about doing that, people are still debating, but, yeah. It's going to be one of those flashpoints too. But so you look at what? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's a flashpoint already because. Sorry to interrupt there. What's going on with Border Patrol? Was there some attacks recently? Was that the first one?
Yeah,
we're seeing these things took off right now.
Sure. And this is the thing. Like, I always think about this in history. Like, when you think about a conflict, the Spanish Civil War or our Civil War or the Revolution, like, what were the things that led up to that contemporaries at the time wouldn't consider it? They didn't consider it as like, oh, this was actually part of the war. Like, how many of those things have happened now that we're going to look back on in, decades and be like, oh yeah, Summer of Love. That was like the clear escalation of political domestic violence or whatever.
Well, think about it as like the tearing down of the Bastille. At first, it was a bunch of hungry people in France that were revolting against it because they had no food. And then before you know it, it's like they're taking brick by brick, down this huge prison. And I think at that point, people were kind of like, oh, we're in this thing now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, that was, again, my 2020. I was walking around DC at nighttime during the riots.
Sure.
Because I wanted to get a feel. I wanted to be like, I've been in Iraq, been in Afghanistan. I know what it's like to be in combat. And just kind of walking. And don't get me wrong, I was like messed up. I was looking the part, if you know what I mean. Walking around, feeling the energy, feeling the whatever, and it's just like, yeah, no, these Americans are these. Sorry, I will not call Americans. These people are destroying the city because they don't believe this is not their city. They're burning down America because they're not Americans.
So you're touching on a super important point right there. What are your countrymen? Like, there's such a divide now where we can almost not coexist with a certain subset, probably a very large subset of the domestic population that we live amongst. These are people that are totally fine murdering babies. These are people totally fine burning businesses down.
Exactly.
Like, I can't exist with that person.
And that's the whole thing. And that's what my struggle is when people say the things like, hey, we can have the conversation and still disagree. I'm like, No, dude, at a certain point, the conversation ends and then we enact the policy. So like, oh, we disagree on, murdering babies at 9 months old or, whatever,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
in the beginning. Well, eventually one side's going to win. It's like there's going to be a decision of who's going to do the thing.
And when you say win, it's not the argument, like, because
Power.
you can argue. Yes, you can argue to the end of the earth. If you're at something we call an impasse, there's only one ever solution to an impasse, and that's force. It's the only one.
It's always
the only
force.
one.
And
Always.
that's what I keep driving home to people is, oh, you know what? I'm going to do the Epstein thing now. All right. So
Send it.
I really don't like the narrative being pushed of, oh, Trump came out and said, the Epstein thing is over. And now you have Jake Tapper talking about it. I'm like, and I was in a space last night and it was, good friends. It was all good and great. And my argument was, guys, if we are relying on Jake Tapper's audience to become red pilled, so that way we can start doing things, like you're just asking your enemy for permission. And now you're trusting Jake Tapper and everybody else who's talking about it. Like, it's never going to work from information. Like, it's only going to happen by force. You have to do the thing or you're going to lose. That's it.
So that's a dangerous argument, dangerous position to take. Because what if you're wrong? And this is why in past podcasts and kind of like in my personal life, when I engage with people, I always try to talk to them about where are your foundational principles? What makes you think the things you think? And most people don't think about that. You can tell on their face when I ask them that question. They've never thought about it in their life. And they might have like a canned answer like, oh, well, I'm a Christian. I'm like, what does that mean? Or I'm a Muslim. What does that mean? Yes, that is a label, but what does it mean to you? Because that's what I'm asking you. Like, where do your first principles come from? Like, if you're a libertarian, you have the non-aggression principle, private property rights. Okay, can work with that because that means some things, and you can make decisions based off that. But most people,
to be fair, by the way, at least they are consistent.
Correct. Yes,
they are true believers in that. And it's like, I'm not gonna say that that's wrong, but I'm the same way with the left. I do respect the left and what they do, because to me, it's like, I respect the left way more than the center or the inactive people, because it's like, at least they're standing up for what they believe in.
Yeah,
I can respect that. Like, I fought against Al Qaeda. I fought against the Jaish al-Mahdi. You can respect warriors to warriors. You can respect a fighter to a fighter, because it's that same level. Like, you do combat arts, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. When you get in the ring, it's like, I can respect this guy.
Yeah, we're here for the same thing. Yeah, like, exactly. I know where you're coming from. You're coming from that side of the ring with your system style, and I'm going to try to engage you, and we'll see what happens. It's honest. It's one of the most honest things you can do, I think, is engage in hand-to-hand combat with someone.
Yeah.
Because there's no lying. I mean, someone could be like, I'm a black belt and whatever, and you get in the ring with them. There's no lying.
You are, but your knee hurts.
yeah. I just knocked you the fuck out. So all right.
That one again.
Yeah. Yeah. I really agree with what you're saying about the left. Is I enjoy honesty, right? And I think that's what resonates with people, because once you're honest, even if I don't agree with you, now we can engage in a meaningful conversation where someone says, I'm a conservative. And then you find out, but I'm pro-choice and all this. I'm like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. Like, that conservative label is not encapsulating the entirety of your morals and principles. So we need to figure out what those are so we can engage honestly. And then we can come to have these tough discussions. And then at the end of the day, if like we're two citizens of a country and you want to murder babies and I don't, and we've made our arguments, well, when you try to murder a baby, I'm probably gonna stop you.
We should figure out a way to stop you then,
Yeah, whatever that means. But yeah, I really think foundational principles are important. Where I think like the boomers that we were talking about earlier, I don't think they have any foundational principles. It's just kind of whatever narrative they were fed through the bottleneck propaganda they got or are still getting. They haven't.
In worst case scenario, honestly, maybe the principles are wrong. You know what I mean?
Sure, that's possible.
I've talked to constitutionalists, and I'll ask them this, like, being straight up, being like, okay, guys, you're a constitutionalist. If we had a revolution tomorrow and we won, right? So we go through a civil war and we have to restart government. Would you write the Constitution and all 27 of its amendments the same exact way? You would do birthright citizenship.
The 19th, come on.
You would do the 19th. You want the popular vote for the Senate. You would do these things. And they're like, well, no, I wouldn't do all those things. I'm like, okay, well, then you're not a adherent to the Constitution as it is.
Sure.
You want to make change.
Yeah, you're pointing to an external thing. I'm talking about the internal thing in you. Like, who are you? What are you?
But they always point to the Constitution, and that's my thing. Is like, that's not culture. That's not a foundational principle. That's a system. It's like systems change, guys. Like, that's not good to have.
Yeah,
and that is where I have a problem with it, because it's, and also at the same time, and I try to tell people this, like, guys, well, guess what? The left loves the Constitution too. That's why they use it so much. That's why they're always trying to gain access to it, because they've changed it so much, and it has been changed so much that it's now, we are a nation of laws in a way, which means we're a nation of power.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in we're a nation of laws, we're a nation of people. But it's like, no, in all reality, this country, it's a country of laws, obviously, which just means power. So like, please stop saying, well, as long as we hear the Constitution, that includes the Administrative Procedures Act now, guys. Like, you're okay with the bureaucracy. Like, you have to now acknowledge that, and then they never do.
Yeah. Well, you got to, if your morals, if you have morals in law and you put law, or your morals come from law, I would say you're holding a very fucked up position, because laws change all the time. Like, I guess morals can change. It's a much more difficult process to change your morals than it is to change a law. Just saying. Exactly. And it's not easy to change a law. That's how difficult morals and principles are. But yeah, so like, if I've had real life conversations with a dude I work with who is a left-wing dude. He, like, I gave him the scenario. Okay, you walk into your house, an illegal immigrant, let's say, raped and killed your wife. Like, you walked in just as he slit her throat. Boom. You're armed, obviously, so you pull your gun out. What are you going to do? And he straight up looked me in the eyes. I hope he fucking hears this. He looked me in the eyes and he said, well, if he stops, then I have to stop. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
like,
I don't believe that.
Because he doesn't want to live in a world with vigilantism. He doesn't want to. It's because he's making a legal argument, and I'm talking about a moral situation. And people think, unfortunately, I think I do. I think he is.
That's fair.
Because there are people like this that they haven't thought about it. Like, he probably never thought about that until I just asked him it. I think about moral.
How often does he trigger his fight, flight, or freeze?
Well, this guy probably never. Yeah,
and that's what I mean. It's like, he may be saying it, but it's like, I don't believe it, because
it's true.
You're going to have a reaction, and I don't think it's going to be with your head, at least not with your frontal lobe. It's like, no, an inner brain talking to you for a little bit.
Well, he's thinking in the terms of in law enforcement. You know what I mean? Like, if the threat de-escalates, you de-escalate. It's like, yeah, we're not talking about law right now. We're talking about a moral situation. Someone just raped and killed your wife in front of you, and you're saying if they surrender, you're going to call the cops. Like, what are the cops going to do? You've outsourced your morality to the state, and that's what you're telling me right now. Like, I know the moral thing to do is to put as many bullets in that guy, probably starting from his legs up, as possible. That's not legal. Like, if for some reason you have
that scenario might be legal.
Well, if you have your house wired up like Jeffrey Epstein style with cameras and microphones and stuff, and there's clear evidence this guy, like, just dropping the knife and be like, I'm sorry, I give up. I'm sorry, I was drunk or whatever. Like, and then you're just like walk up to him and execute him. I'm pretty sure you're going to jail.
I think crime of passion is going to override that one, actually.
Well, no, you might get off. You might get off.
There's technicalities you can use.
Yeah, there's technicalities. It's possible you'll get off, but you're going to be arrested. You're going to be this whole thing. Like, you're going to go through that. I mean, we have lots of examples of people like in blue strongholds. New York is the one I'm thinking about, where guy tries to rob the convenience store with a knife. Owner pulls a shotgun, blows his arm off. I think kills the dude, and then the guy goes to jail for they charged him with murder, and then he ended up getting convicted of a manslaughter charge.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like,
but the the legal question is whatever the legal question is, but the moral question is, was he right? And 100% in my version of morality, and this is what I think my society should be based off of, is like-minded people who have similar morals and values. And then everyone else can just be the other tribes, because it's the only way we're going to be cohesive, to have a high trust society, because go ahead.
And that's where it comes down to that part. Okay. So how do you get there? If you were to ask Bates to grok this question, like, he's going to give you a pretty good answer on, how things work when it comes to high trust societies, and it's going to involve biology, it's going to involve culture, it's going to involve probably a little bit more so of like the geographics at least, because that helps determine a lot of things, blah blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's where it's just, I think we're going to struggle for a while more, because age 15 above, they're not there. Like they are true believers in, if you went through a certain course and you signed a certain document with USCIS, you are now an American. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah,
No,
I don't
be a
agree.
citizen, you're not an American. Those are two very different things. Not everybody who comes here can become an American. Not every person that comes here, I would say most actually, you just can't. And again, I will point to that young woman again. What's her name? Now I can say this because we did it for Lake and Riley. Kayli Grace Arseth.
Sure.
She was murdered. She was beaten. She was brutalized by a legal immigrant who, from my understanding, I could be wrong here, by the way, I think he actually joined the military first as well when he got here. And it's just like that. Oh, but that doesn't matter, because you're not an American. Like, you don't do that to our people.
This isn't Starship Troopers. Service doesn't guarantee citizenship.
Which is where I would think I would like it to go. That to me is victory and winning. At least, getting to that state. To me, the whole thing is going to be growing families again. Which is why I still think, looking back at the first Trump administration, I have questions about it, because the birth rate still declined.
Yeah, we're at 1.6, I think, right now.
Yeah, we're 1.6, and the UN is forecasting it to stay that 1.6 going forward. But I look at that and I say it like, okay, but if life got better, we'd be having more babies. We would have seen a bounce. We would have seen even a flat line or something, and it just can't continue.
But what good does that do if the babies that are being had are not Americans, like you're saying? Because yes, they're American citizens. So let's explore that for a second. What is an American to you?
That's what I'm still talking about. So I would definitely say probably European descent, and or a culture that can adhere to Western civilization. Like, I don't think, and I'm saying this as an Eastern Orthodox Christian, okay? Yeah. I don't think honestly, probably east of Poland. So I think Russians, Ukrainians, Georgians, these are Christians, these are Europeans. Yeah. I think they would struggle having our type of society based on who we are. And that's, sure. I would honestly show it as the cultural map from the Clash of Civilizations by Samuel Huntington. He has a map lined out. I'm going to pull it up.
Pull it up. You can share it on here if you want.
Huntington.
Just don't share your personal address.
No, yeah. Twice.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the chat, and you can
okay, cool.
You can pull it up. Clash of map.
So I was raised Catholic, so a fellow traveler. Orthodox was the only other religion I actually recognized back in my Catholicism days.
Yeah, we're close, man. We're close.
Yeah, no, I know.
All right, here it's from Reddit. I'm sorry, but it's a decent map. That's the map location for it. So you want to pull it that way. This one's good too, because it's a little bit more image address, and the second link's probably actually better, because that's at least Wikimedia. It's not Reddit. I'm not trying to not trying to have you load Reddit right now. Sorry, but that to me is it right there. And okay. I'm not saying, and this is where it gets complex, because it's like, okay, well, what about Black people? Well, Black people have been here 400 years. Is there an Americanism there? I do actually think so, but I'm sorry, migrants coming over from the ICR and the UN boats that basically deliver them to our shores in the year 2021 through 2025. You don't just become American. Like, there's a strong thing there, and I will listen to a lot of people that talk about these things too when they say, I'm name dash American, name whatever American. It's like, okay, well, if you think that, like, I'll believe you. That means you're not American. Then you're something / American.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I see it. But
and my grandma came here in the after the rape of Nanking from China, but my father's side was here for a long time. And I would still admit, till the day she died, she just was not what I would consider an American. My grandmother, she just wasn't. I mean, her values were very Chinese. They were just Chinese. They're Chinese.
My Nana came over. She married my grandpa. My Nana was my mom's mom, and my grandma, my mom's dad, obviously. She was English, World War II, Grandpa goes over, fights, and the way back home. I'm sure they meet, whatever. She immigrates, and she immersed herself in American culture. She was a Chicago Bears fan.
Yeah.
She, whatever. And at the same time, she always maintained her Englishness. Never lost her accent. First off, I love that. But she would help me out with like understanding like World War II history, and she would have me watch like British fucking propaganda films from like the 1940s. But she would say like, these are our people, and we suffered, but we stuck together, and like really, really strong stuff. I remember at a funeral we went to. I was young. This is my first funeral. I was like, dude, 5. Like I'm at that level, right?
Yeah.
And I remember just being sad because that's like, this guy's laying there, open casket. This guy's laying there, he's not moving. Someone's saying he won't wake up, and I'm just kind of like getting sad about it. I kind of start crying a little bit. She grabs me by the arm and she goes, "We don't cry at funerals." And I was like, got it. We don't cry at funerals. And it was instilled in me at that age, but it's like, that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Um,
You are your culture. You are.
yeah.
So I don't know what the American culture is, honestly, if I'm being honest with you, like as a whole. I know what my culture is, but I don't know what American culture is. And this is something the boomers, even you and me, we were all propagandized that's what makes America great, is we're a melting pot. We're a melting pot,
Yeah, that's not
true. Clearly not. Yeah.
Can you see my screen here? There we go.
Yeah.
So this is the map that Samuel Huntington basically created of clash of civilizations. And it's like, I always start with Asia because it is kind of more broken up. You have this Sino one, the Chinese, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't include Japan inside there.
Yeah.
Historically, he's done Korea, but I guess this one doesn't. Then you got your Mongols, you got your Central Asian. This is more of your steppe,
your stands,
Arabia, whatever, but it kind of gets into the like Muslim conquest areas. But this is Orthodox Europe, basically. This is not Western Europe. This is Eastern Europe. This has more culture coming from Byzantium and Orthodoxy, as opposed to what happened with the Enlightenment and the Reformation, which is Western Europe. Obviously, Catholic countries still exist: France, Spain, Italy, etc. But primarily, like Western Europe is very different from whatever else. And when you look at this, it incorporates the Northern Hemisphere, right? And when I look at the creation of the country and the nation, they were all Englishmen that came over. They may have been Scots-Irish, they may have been English, some just writ large British. Yes, I know there was your token whatever else. There was your token Orthodox, your token whatever. They were Anglos, right?
Yeah.
And as it grew, it's normal for, I think, civilizations to like kind of migrate with each other, right? Like, so over the centuries, this migration pattern isn't too crazy for me. Like, you're kind of going around the same areas. This ain't too nuts. You kind of all sub-Saharan Africa. You're kind of merging around. Yes, there's different cultures, kind of a little bit, but these are like way broad boundaries. But my thing is, the founding fathers, again, all Englishmen, and they were not world travelers. So like the system we created worked for a certain type of people. I don't think our idea of an American Republic would work very well in Ukraine, in Lithuania, in Russia, in Bulgaria. I think they adhere to a more strict version of this, or of governance, based on orthodoxy. So it's like, their like monarchies are kind of more acceptable. But I think we have this weird thing, which we kind of, I would say, suffer from, which is just too much change too quick. And that's okay for some things. Like we could handle for a short period of time, swaths of Spanish coming over, and then Italians, and then Germans, and then, Poles and Irish. But even then there was major conflict. Like there was a small insurrection inside of Philadelphia between like Catholics and Protestants in the 1870s or the later 1800s. That actually happened. It's like, those are all white Europeans, all Christians. Yeah, obviously there was a sectarian thing there, but that happened. Well, what happens when you start mixing in like, indigenous from South America and, Islam from North Africa, sub-Saharan Africans with whatever? It's like, it just doesn't work. And I always point to Liberia for this one. Liberia has the same constitution as the United States.
Yeah.
They're Christians. So we have those common denominators, and yet we are still very different people, because the people part matters. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I don't believe in assimilation, really. I think you have to sincerely immerse yourself. And even that's going to happen over blood, over time.
Yeah.
So it's like my Nana, she was not American. She became a U.S. citizen, but she was English through and through to the day she died. And, my other 3 grandparents, they were American, so it's like kind of washed out by the time we got to me, I think, type of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. If you turn the United States into a rainbow, and that means a lot of things, it leads to what we're seeing today. Like there's tribalism is inherent in our species for a reason. And you don't just undo that with a law. You don't just undo that with, whatever, a song by Michael Jackson and a bunch of other people, like we are the world, that kind of thing. Like, no, this shit doesn't work. It doesn't fucking fly because you have mutually exclusive principles amongst these people. Like you go to, like you said, if you're in Dubai, that very rigid Islamic culture is not, you cannot just take those people and put them in fucking Nebraska and everything will just be fine. No.
what my first deployment, Iraq is 04 Iraq. We qualified for R&R because we stayed there for like 8 months. So about, I think, month 5.5, we qualified for R&R. So I went to Qatar because, it was like 3-4 days. You can go there with a small team, whatever. And going through customs, we all smoked or dipped, right?
Yeah.
So I had a pack of smokes, can of dip, and was going through customs, and the Qatari customs guy was like, "You can't do this in my country. You can't dip in my country." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I won't then. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Whatever." He goes, "If I catch you dipping in this country, it's like we will, we're not okay with that." And the same thing's true with there's parts of Southeast Asia where it's like you can't spit. Like they don't allow that. You know what I mean?
Singapore, they'll hit you with a stick.
Singapore,
dude.
right?
Yeah, they will hit you.
Yeah, it's just like, but it's who they are.
Correct. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if I go there, it's like I'm never going to be Singaporean. I can adhere to their things a little bit, but it's like I'm never going to actually be Singaporean.
No.
And and then there's but then there's the whole problem of they're not adhering here though. Look at the crimes they're doing.
Yeah.
Look at the young woman again. And I don't care if it's just one. Even if it was just one, that's enough reason for me to go extreme and get these people out of the fucking country, basically.
Because the culture that you come from, when you went to Qatar, you recognize, because of your Western values, I am a guest. There are certain cultural norms when you're a guest in someone else's house. Like if you're in an Asian house, you're going to take your fucking shoes off. Well, I don't like to take my shoes off. Well, you're a guest. So you're going to take your shoes off, but this is not what this has not been my experience in my 16, 17 years of interacting with people from all over the world. They do not behave like guests. Definitely not when they're murdering young women.
That's what I mean. And that's been my biggest problem too, though, is like, dude, how many guys came to the border that you saw throughout the past 4 years?
Just me personally with my own eyes.
Yeah, just
tens of thousands.
You want to say 50,000 just to have a safe number?
Sure, there was 50,000 that crossed in the month of January, just where I'm at in 2023.
How many of them were like, "Hey, by the way, dude, we just saw a rape tree and that guy's in on it," or like, "Hey, dude, we know that guy's a rapist on the way up here. That dude sold drugs to a kid. That guy kidnapped a kid. That one's a trafficker." How many inside tips did you get from all these people coming across the border? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, guys, like you're not going to make it here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And the ones that are good people, because there are some, it's like, I don't know, willing to have the conversation, but when we have young women getting raped and murdered, when they're fucking up car insurance rates, I'm not okay with that. Let alone violence, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, it's just like we're screwing over our youth, and why? For economic reasons, and I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. And like you said, the native population birth rate is 1.6, but the non-native birth rate pretty fucking high. So give that 50 years.
Yeah.
What does that do to your population? Well, it's only 10 million that came in the last 4 years. There's millions and millions and millions before that. And they're all outbreeding you. They don't have to conquer your country. You have a democratic republic here, or representative republic, whatever.
Yeah.
Based on democracy. They don't have to defeat you. They just outbreed you.
Okay. Let's squeeze that really quick. Okay, so now they're all coming over with all Americans. So they should be about the way we vote then, right? Kind of almost 50-50, or is there a serious political difference when it comes to the partisan part?
Pretty political. Yeah.
They all like one side. Well, gee, guys, maybe they're not being very American in this diverse idea of politics. Maybe they're being tribal and taking things over.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a part that is struggles for people, I think.
Try to explain that to a boomer. Try to explain that. No, like they'll integrate and they'll see that our country is number one and the greatest. And I'm like, you do not understand human psychology. You don't understand cultural dynamics. You don't understand any of it.
It's just not there. And so I've got some younger colleagues. I always ask them, not to, by the way, whenever we do like a product release or whatever, I always ask them like, hey, what's your input in this thing? And I'm like senior to them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm always like, what do you think? Like, give me your perspective. You are a Zoomy. I need your, like whatever. Because I've noticed that for sure is you have a lot of millennials have this whole like the quirky thing, right? That's like our shtick, is that we're just quirky whatevers. And I'm not opposed to that. It's like, yeah, we kind of are. I'm actually proud of the fact that we had that like little run of like Appalachian music for a while with like,
Yeah.
it's like, it's wholesome music. It's like, I love that. We were like hopeful and young and,
Yeah.
we like Avicii. We're cool. But I thought to a lot of Zoomies, it's like, dude, they're so much more darker than I am. And it's like, I've been to fucking combat. And like, this guy is dystopian. He's awesome. You know what I mean? But it's like, there's a reason why. It's like,
look up the world he's in. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, and he even says it's like, shit, dude, like my freshman year in college, like I was locked down. Like my first 2 years of college was the lockdowns. And I'm just like,
I can't afford a house. I can't get a good job. I'm saddled with debt. The women are just promiscuous and the gender dynamics are all fucked up. Like that's the world they live in. Like, that's what I'm saying. The boomers, I'm fighting the millennial side, that because I think a lot of our humanity just operates off momentum, right? But we're operating off our momentum.
oh, it's inertia at this point.
It's inertia. Yeah, it's inertia at this point. We're operating our momentum. The people below us, they're experiencing a completely different set of shit. Even though we're all experiencing it, but like we adapt our worldviews. Go ahead.
Have you lived in a city that's very, very sorry, not lived in. Have you ever been to a city recently? Let's say the past like probably more than 2 years, where there is a very high number of non-Americans. Because I've noticed like, dude, shit don't work very good there. Roads kind of suck. People don't adhere to the, like when to cross the sidewalk and when to do this and that, holding doors for women. Hey, do you want to get up and take my seat on the train? It's like, no, it's very different. And it's imagine living in a city like that when you're, 22 years old. And you have to, because that's where the job's at for the thing that you're trying to go for. So that way you can do something, and you're being told every step of the way that you're no, you're the problem.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's why I see that switch eventually happening on the right.
Yeah. But it's funny when you talk about the Zoomers, the disparity between the men and the women politically is it's wider than I've ever seen it. The men are being pushed way more conservative, and the women women historically are much more pliable politically, because they had to be, right? Like oftentimes throughout our history, all the men would get killed and then you get absorbed into another tribe. And if you want to survive, you better acquiesce or you're going to, but the men didn't have that option. They were usually just killed. So men are usually much more stable in general, but let's say just unstable politically, where women can be moved, much easier, which is why I think they target women with most things. Plus, they're the ones who push culture forward because they raise kids and all that. This is a different discussion. But
that's why I will always defend a younger generation blindly to an older one. Whenever like a boomer's like, oh, this whatever, I will defend the younger one like to the death. Yeah. Because it's like, I think we should be not attacking our kids. We should be helping them. We should be crafting. We should be building for them. Planting trees that will never sit in their shade. We should be doing that, not talking shit about them. Like when I was your kid, I was, when you're my age, you want to compare some differences between the country you lived in 43 years ago versus when I was,
pull yourself up by your bootstraps, And it was the younger generation doesn't even have boots. And then what you just said right there, imagine like planting a tree you'll never sit under the shade of. Why would you do that in a place you don't even value? Like if you're coming here, you don't have roots here. You don't have history here. Like all you care about is what you can get now. What can you do for me now?
In economic zone.
Yeah. In economics. Yeah. Essentially in the economic zone. It's correct.
And that's what's happening, by the way, in Western Europe as well. And that's why I'd say it's like, Americans are extensions of Europeans, and we have the same ideas, same principles. the Enlightenment, right?
Yeah.
All the Treaty of Westphalia, et cetera, et cetera. And I think since we are all having the same things happening at the same time, it's like, yeah, I think there's a reason why, because, we're the same people.
Yeah.
Orthodoxy, they went through their problem of communism. They shut it off. They figured it out.
Yeah.
And they weren't all the same. Like a lot of, Serbians, they maintained their church. The Russian church got attacked very hard, et cetera, et cetera. But, they bounced back. And
yeah. And this is, I think, a flaw in Western society in general is we think our society is so great. Our culture is so great, which it is. But we think that these people will come here and the culture or the society will change the people. The people won't change the society. And it's just not fucking accurate, dude. It's not accurate. In 50 years, the most common name in London right now of newborn babies is Muhammad. I mean, what do you think that is going to do to that culture?
Here's two fun ones, by the way. I was asking this to people when we struck Iran's nuclear sites, because they were saying well, they're crazy Muslims, whatever. I was like, cool. So should we be attacking France and Britain in 50 years? Because guess what,
correct.
They would just hide that one off. But I've actually had fun with this part, especially about the American thing, because we lose it ourselves, I think. I'll ask people okay, what day was the moon landing? What day was the Constitution? What year was the Constitution signed? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When is Victory Europe Day and when is Victory Japan Day? When is the Treaty of Versailles? And I'll ask them not just war questions, but why don't you tell me the significance of John Henry and John Chapman?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just it's always just and there's a pause and then and it's because we're losing our own culture. We're losing our myths, our folklore, etc. And Paul Bunyan, who can actually, why is Paul Bunyan a folklore? What do we learn about that? What does it tell us about us? If I go to the Dutch, the real Dutch, they can still explain why the kid with the finger in the dike is a great story. He sacrificed himself to save a town, et cetera, et cetera. That's why the kid's still a living legend. And here we are, what day did Paul Revere do what?
Yeah. Who is Paul Revere?
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I think that's not on accident. I don't think, especially let's say the American culture, because what is the American culture? I mean, our heritage is rebellion is what people say. And if you're a government of that, that's not exactly the kind of sentiments you want to persist,
But even then, though, we weren't. Shays Rebellion, this still blew my mind when I actually learned about it. And I've never actually gone way, way deep on it. But Shays Rebellion was basically John Shays, or whatever his name was, something Shays. He felt he was being taxed too much after the Revolutionary War, and he went to war. And the state, the new American government, was like, the fuck you are.
Yeah, crush.
And John Jay, who was one of the founding fathers, I believe his quote was, there can only be one revolution within a generation. So it's even that idea of we are rebellious. We are by nature. I will agree there. But it's well, we also seek order. We also want to make sure that we stay whatever. And yeah, fast forward 250 years.
We've lost all that. Yeah.
It's all gone.
Yeah. I think the conversation that we're having right now is super important, but if you talk to anyone who hears this, that's 50 or above, is going to say, these guys are racist, or these guys are, extremists. These guys are whatever,
My favorite is when they call me a leftist.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Call me. Yeah.
If that makes me a leftist, call me fucking Karl Marx at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, then I'm way far right. It's one of those things where it's you guys don't even know what you're talking about at this point. And I can understand that. I can.
Sure.
But then start relinquishing power. I don't think they should be driving the train anymore when it comes to politics and culture, et cetera. To me, it's nope, that's how we lose, because that's how we've been losing.
Yeah.
The
bulk of our politicians are, I don't know what the median age is of the people that actually run the country in the most powerful positions. Your Pelosi's, your McConnell's, your, those people. They're 80, man.
Give me a sec here. I can do this one actually pretty quick.
Okay.
Original Power Map Congress. There's been a disproportionate hold of boomers on Congress. There's this really cool chart which kind of shows it as generations. And that's because of our growing, numerous things, obviously, but our growing life expectancy. Sure. That ain't helping out. And I'm not saying let's go kill everybody, but It's like, but nothing's changing. For that has to change.
Yeah.
I can't find it anymore. Dang, it's a really great map. It's like a chart map. Sorry.
So you have the boomers, which I would argue is probably one of the worst generations we have.
So far.
To date, so
Not
far.
all
Yeah,
time.
true. We'll see what the millennials turn into. But yeah, those people are in charge right now, and they're not even living in the same world as you or me, and they're like on a different planet as the Zoomers. You know, like they're completely different. Like everything about them is different. All their values, sensibilities, the words they use. I mean, everything is different.
They're all their ideas.
Yeah.
They truly believe Social Security is a contract between generations.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't sign that contract. Like, we didn't vote on that this time, guys. That was done before you guys were even born.
Sure.
I'm not okay with it.
Yeah. Maybe we should revisit it, but that would never happen under a boomer leadership. No, because again, they operate off momentum, right? This is how things have always been, you know, my whole life. It's good enough for me. It's good enough for you, you know, even though we live in a different world now. Yeah. So this is how you get people that are still trusting the FBI telling you there's nothing to the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, you know, because they blindly trust the institutions that maybe you could get away with that when the institutions were you, but these institutions are not you anymore. Exactly. You know? Yeah. And you got to come to terms with that. You got to interact with reality.
If that doesn't just fucking nail it on the head, the institutions are not you anymore. And it's like, and I do mean all those institutions. Like, I don't want to destroy Harvard. I believe Harvard is a great American institution that we've lost. And I believe in taking it over again. Like, I'm not one of those guys that says, like, you know, move out of the cities. No, we need to be taking over our cities. Like, we need American cities. Like, that's huge for us. That's commerce. It's a lot of culture driving. It's trade. It's all sorts of things. Like, we need cities. I don't want to lose Chicago, you know, to whatever.
To commies.
Right. Yeah. It's like, let's stop ceding territory. Let's start taking it over. Again, it's about force. It's advancing.
I know you mentioned Pete Quinones earlier. He has a podcast, Free Man Beyond the Wall. It's great. He probably renamed it, right? But
the Pete Quinones show, I think.
Pete Quinones show. So
Free Man was awesome too, by the way.
It was super great. So he doesn't identify as a libertarian anymore, obviously, because libertarians, they would have this whole argument that people, like, especially boomer Republican types, they would be like, well, if you don't like it here, why don't you move to Somalia? And even libertarians that I was around at the time, this is back 2012, 2013, I'd be like, nah, I'd rather fight you for it. You know, like, and that's, you know, against some libertarians, I guess, sensibilities, but it's the right answer. It's the moral answer. You know, because if you think you're morally correct, thinking that I think individual liberty is the most important, like culture is important, all these principles I have, and someone is like, well, we don't like those principles, so you can just leave. What if I don't? I mean, what if I don't? You want to fight me over this? Because they're principles for a reason. I'm willing to die for them. So are you? Because that's going to be the deciding factor. And throughout history, who the people willing to die are the people willing to win. You know, I just think that is the way things are going to, because I agree with you. Like, let's just burn all this shit down. Let's take it over. You know, like, yes, that won't be the most peaceful thing. Like,
will be some country back. Yeah.
Take our country back. You know, I know that sounds Republican in nature, but I actually mean it, unlike the Republicans. You know,
can we talk now a quick then about deportations?
Let's do it.
Because I don't like the shift from the people right now. Right. And I'll say this, I'm not a populist. I don't like the like this okay with, you know, oh, we're just going to do targeted mass deportations and we're going to do, you know, whatever. I'm not gonna lie, I don't like this whole farm thing with certain workers, because the U.S. immigration enterprise is never going to do what the president wants it to do. It's like, nope, that's a captured institution, and
it's not you.
Yeah, they will take what you want and they'll use it however they want to use it. That's how it works. And until you change that, you'll never get what you want. But I don't like people now saying, like, you know, oh, well, that means you're not, like, you know, with the team. And it's like,
you're not real MAGA.
We've already voted for the mandate. Like, that's what the election was. It was the mandate. We're voting for you. It was mass deportations. We want you to do it. And Nick Fuentes said it so great last night on his show. He said, this is why I like him. He's a great forecaster. He says, get these people the fuck out of my country. And it's like, you can't capture it any better than that. Because it's like, that's the sentiment. It's very direct. And that's what we mean. We want them out of our country. Like, I'm loving this whole thing now of showing like the Los Angeles GPS maps where people are like, wow, my life seems less complicated. My life seems more efficient. There's less things in the way of me right now. I'm not as stressed being in traffic right now. I get more of my fucking time back with my family now because I can drive from A to B quicker. They're wasting less gasoline. That seems greener for the environment. And it's just like, I don't know why we're caving into this, but I don't think people are caving in. I just think they do what they're told. You know what I mean? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Which is why I do think still, it's like, well, all it takes is a very small active force to apply what we need to do in the end.
The left showed you that. The left showed you that. And every time.
I respect them.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't agree with them, but I respect that about them. I wish there was a right-wing counterbalance to that. Because I think that would be, but historically, I think the state fears the right-wing side of it because the left wing, when they do believe what they say, they do act on the things they believe. But what that looks like generally is like disorganized chaos kind of thing, where the right wing historically, when they believe what they say and they do what they say, usually, people usually look down their sights when they shoot. They actually walk in a straight line. And the
left can organize, but the right will militarize.
Correct. Yeah.
Really
great.
That trend kind of continues because, and I'm not saying I want to do genocide. It's not that at all. But seriously, like, I want this country to stay American.
Yeah.
It's the United States of America.
Yeah.
Americans are a people. And I'm just inherent on that one because it's like, show me your friends. I'll show you your future. It's like, well, show me your populations. I can show you your future. It's like, there's no difference there, guys.
And I don't like our population. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like the way it's going. I don't like the trajectory. I just don't. It's not me, and I've said this on previous podcasts. These people, like I was talking about that Afghani interpreter or whatever that shot those two cops. I don't know if you remember that story.
Dude, exactly.
Yeah.
He was one of the good guys.
One of the good guys. I said, I don't give a shit. He's not one of us. That's what I said. And that sounds nationalistic because it is. That sounds jingoistic, I guess, but I fucking believe it. And I think that is the correct moral way forward. Maybe it's not legal, but it's moral. And morality to me is much more important than whatever the law is. The law could be like, hey, we can execute 30 babies a year, and that's our threshold, and that's legal. 31,000 is illegal. I'm like, no. I get that it's legal. There are tons of things that are legal that I think are immoral, and and the libertarian in me is like, well, who am I to say? Well, tell you who I am. I'm a man in a country that has children, that cares about my fellow men, that has morals and principles.
Exactly.
And
sorry, by the way, now that you said that, that is one of my new filtering mechanisms of, especially in Twitter spaces. One, I'm the whole, like, if we talk American politics, I want no foreigners, no Canadians, no Aussies, no whatever.
What are you going to add? What are you going to add? It's
not your country. Like, if it's Western civilization, if it's just free speech topics, if it's ideas, sure. But if it's American politics, like, non-Americans need not apply. Yeah. And the other thing is, I've become very big on, if you're over the age of 30 and you're not, I think it's over the age of 30. And if you're not married and or a father or a mother, it's like, I honestly dismiss your opinion.
Yeah, you have no stake. Yeah.
You don't have a stake in the claim. You don't have a stake in the future. I don't want you driving the future, because it's like, who benefits? Probably your wallet, because that's what your future is.
Yeah.
My future are my kids and my grandkids eventually. It's like, that's what I'm fighting for, is their futures.
Agreed.
I will always defend our younger generations. Yeah. Our is the key word there. Our.
And that man I was talking about, the person I was talking about, that said he wouldn't shoot the guy who surrendered after he raped and killed his wife, or whatever. No kids. So just saying, everyone says this. I know everyone said it to death, but when you have kids, your whole mindset fucking changes. It changes, and it should,
And there's a few factors that do that. Like, one of them is, when you see your kids suffer, like, you fucking change. You know what I mean? if you were to start seeing your kids' cheekbones and like sunken, you know what I mean? Like they're becoming like, oh, I can't feed my child and they're starving to death. You don't believe in, larceny anymore. You don't believe
Yeah.
in like petty theft and like, I can go rob a grocery store. That becomes very, very moral for you because it's like, I will take care of my child no matter what. And
to the detriment of other people's children. Like, if you don't choose your own children over other people's children, there's something fucking wrong with you, man. There's something wrong with you. I know that sounds crazy, but
now look at it. Why is it our birth rate 1.6 when theirs is like 3.0 and higher?
Sure.
That's coming to the detriment of my kids' future and their grandkids and their country, et cetera. It's like, I'm sorry, but that's a natural conclusion. And I don't know what people say when they say like, well, what should we do?
Well, get them the fuck out.
You get them the fuck out. You could do the long game, which is going to lose, which is they can never naturalize become a citizen. And it's like, okay, well, eventually you're going to get a South Africa position where it's like they can become the government still, but guess what? Eventually you're going to get overridden.
Yeah.
Eventually, but yeah, then that's why I think there will inevitably be a conflict. Maps don't change. Sorry, maps never stay the same. Maps will change over time. It's just, will you let it, or will you be the one drawing the map?
Yeah, Rhodesia. Everyone heard of Rhodesia? It's actually called Zimbabwe now or something, right?
Yeah, Rhodesia.
Yeah.
What is it? What's the from Blood Diamond?
Oh yeah, he's like, we call it Zimbabwe now, right? He's like, do we now? Yeah.
On Twitter when they say like, it's the same meme, but they say we're on Twitter. They, we call it X now. Like, do we?
Do we? Yeah, because I still type in Twitter to Google search bar. Yeah. No, I mean, these are all the correct positions. Nick Fuentes is right. I mean, these people, it's abrasive, but I don't give a shit how it makes someone feel. Like feelings I learned that a long time ago after a long marriage. I don't care about what you feel. Is it true or not? Right. Because that at the end of the day is the objective thing that we share. We don't share feelings. We share the objective truth.
And I started following him solely because his forecasting. Like, I think he's probably one of the best political forecasters I've ever seen. Like, when he talked about the war in Iran in October, whatever, 2023. I mean, it was immediate. He was like, we're going to strike Iran, this, that. And I'm like, he's speaking ahead of me. He's seeing down the track farther than I am. But he can explain it, whatever else, right? I'm not going to lie. Him being funny helps out. It makes
sure does.
Helpful. But same thing with Pico Nones. He understands history, I think, and the moments better than most people. Like, because you saw him as an older guy. You saw him switch in 2020. Not a lot of older men switched in 2020.
No.
You saw who you, as the people say, the lockdowns showed you who you really are.
Yeah.
And I was a listener of him prior to the lockdowns and then
Me
during
too.
and after. And I'm not going to lie. It's like, I give a lot of credit to him because he was making a lot of sense for a lot of people, I think.
He said something very funny one time. This was at Pork Fest, which is a libertarian event. And this is right when he was transitioning to post-libertarianism or whatever that journey he went on. He's obviously it upset a lot of libertarians because a lot of them are pussies. I'm just going to say it. They don't want to hurt feelings. But he was talking about, someone asked him a question like, what is your strategy with dealing with the hard left online? And he said, I want to meme them into depression and then push them to self-harm. and I'm like, yeah, that's, because these people are your enemy and they view you as an enemy. And if you don't view them as an enemy, you're fucked,
His line that sticks with me is always, my friends get libertarianism and my enemy gets the state.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it too. It's like, my friends, they get libertarianism and my enemy will get the full power of the state. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's how it should be. That is because that is correct morals.
It's how it is. It's just,
it's reality. Yeah.
We don't want to do it here.
Wow.
And it's like, man, it's going to get more people will die in the long run because we're not doing the things we have to do right now. And that sucks. You know what I mean?
It does. But this is what I'm saying. You have to be honest with reality, because if you're on a boat in the river, reality is the rocks. You can pretend like they're not there all you want, but they're going to sink your fucking boat, dude. They're going to sink your boat. And this is what I think we keep getting hit with is like, oh, we never saw this. Is why Nick Fuentes is so good, because he's dealing with reality. So he can see these rocks in the water coming ahead of time, where everyone else just blindly like pretending like there is no rocks. And then when they hit one, they're like, what the fuck was that? I can't believe no one saw this coming. You know, like clearly Israel wants to pull you into this fucking war. They've done it a bunch of times recently, and all the signs are pointing to they want to pull you into this one with Iran. So he doesn't have to be a clairvoyant to see that coming. He just has to engage with reality. And that's what I think a lot of people don't want to do because of fear of being a racist. If you're a young dude, women won't have sex with you if you just engage with reality, but you're going to die. You're going to hit those rocks if you don't engage with reality. And this is something that everybody needs to fucking learn, and they need to learn it yesterday.
And that's why I respect him, because he says it now. Because a lot of people will do the whole like it happened and then go like, oh, I always knew that was going to happen. And it's like,
sure.
Where were you in the forewarning? Where were you in your, like maneuvers to prevent it?
Yeah.
And like
everyone's against COVID now. Everyone thinks COVID was a scam now. Where the fuck were you in 2021 where I was getting threatened to being fired for not taking this experimental vaccine? And I said it at the time that this shit was a fucking psyop. It's wrong. It's violating all my principles. Like, I'm not fucking doing it. And then there are all these guys that took the vaccine, now they're saying like, well, yeah, clearly they were fucking lying to us. It's like, it's not dangerous. It's not Trogdor. Hey, sorry. But if you're an abolitionist in 2020 or whatever, like it's pointless. If you're an abolitionist in 1860, it's fucking dangerous. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like principles only matter when they're hard to have. It's not hard to be against owning someone's property right now. Even though it's morally the correct position, it's not dangerous. So like if you have your principles, it's going to put you in positions where you're going to be against the status quo, and you can't be afraid of that.
And that's where I'm at with the child trafficking thing. So like I designed a concept of operations to how to recover all the children that got, trafficked through the UC program, how to destroy all the networks, right? And then also how to like dismantle all the infrastructure, the NGOs, contracts, etc. And I
unaccompanied children.
Yep, unaccompanied children. And I pushed hard on this for like a year. And I kept hearing things like, we're gonna look at a state solution, and then like, oh, we gotta do this first, and we gotta check that first. And then, Trump won, which I already knew because where I was working at, it's like we knew he was going to win. And then it was the transition, and I'm still pushing it. People are still like, well, we're, it was always a well. And now it's 7 months in, and now people are starting to be like, well, yeah, we should have a child trafficking task force dedicated to this thing. I'm like, where were you when it mattered?
When it mattered, yeah.
Like, because we should still do it. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. But how many kids have gotten raped, beaten, and killed in this past 7 months? That's unacceptable for me. And these are not American kids, you know what I mean? But it's like, but children, that's where the values come in.
They're innocent, yeah.
Right. And it's like, and this is why I still am very, obviously, I'm dumber, but I'm still like trying to be active in the whole like CPS foster care thing to make sure that American kids don't get the same treatment, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But it's like, but you guys just went along though with the memes, and you went along with your feed up until now, and they still kind of are. So they'll be like, well, it's the government's like an ocean liner, and you got to steer it really slowly. And I'm like, okay, what about war spending? Does that take a 6-month debate? Does that take a policy position for, massaging the whatever? It's like, no, guys, like you don't know what you're talking about, but you're trying to slow me down. And maybe it's fear, maybe it's apprehension to act, maybe it's just something I don't know about.
Or they're evil, or they're fucking evil. I mean, that is the real possibility if you take the totality of the circumstances, like how many of these fucking creepy assholes are in power. And then you see what happened with Epstein and how many people are implicated in that, who's implicated in that. And then you have them not wanting to address this unaccompanied child trafficking ring that the U.S. government was involved with for the last number of years. I'm just saying you can make the argument that these people are fully aware of the morality of the problem, and they are on the wrong side of that, not on accident. That's all I'm saying. Maybe it's possible. Just saying.
I'm debating about starting my own podcast and just calling it "Not Gonna Make It."
Not gonna.
Just go through my feed and look at people's postings. Hey, look at this one, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, shit. The 1Way Out podcast that came out during COVID because that's when it really became apparent to me that we're not voting.
That started back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started. A height of COVID. I mean, it was not safe. It's probably still not safe, but that's what I'm saying. You have principles or you don't, and the time to do it is when it's dangerous because that's when it's needed.
Yeah.
And I really believe this 1Way Out thing. I'm not advocating violence per se. I'm just saying that historically around the world, how do things change?
No,
You know,
it's historically and statistically.
correct.
Like this is just logic at this point.
Hey, I'm just talking about rocks in the water here, guys. I'm not saying anything, outrageous. I'm just dealing in reality here. Like I don't want, in my perfect scenario, everyone would wake up tomorrow with, it'd be a libertarian utopia, that would be, but I'm in the water with rocks. So I can't hope and wish and pray the rocks away. I have to deal with those rocks.
Exactly.
And be realist. And that's what I think happened to Pete Quinones is he had his ideals and then he engaged with reality.
Told the truth.
He told the truth. He told the truth, and that's the only way things ever change.
And actually, honestly, there's, I think, two layers to that. One is telling the truth. The other is just not lying to yourself. Like, and honestly, you don't have to tell the truth. You don't have to go out there and advocate and say whatever.
Sure.
It's like, but don't lie to yourself. And that's the biggest thing I think that's hard for people is lying to yourself. And I always tell my kids this, like, you can lie to me and don't obviously, but never lie to yourself. And I always tell young people that never lie to yourself because it's just catastrophic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Lying in general is catastrophic, but when you lie to yourself, it's fatal.
It's just a killer.
Yeah. So before we wrap up here, I wanted to pick your brain or what you think, in regard to the boomers, and our relationship with Israel. Like I said, I was raised Catholic, so I'm not super familiar with the Eastern Orthodox. I know they're much more closely aligned as far as like their first principles and things they believe. But there's a huge percentage of boomers who either through propaganda or through their evangelical Protestant, which like I said, again, Catholic background, not a fan of the Protestants personally, but they have this belief that Israel's our greatest ally, not just because, they were propagandized into that. Well, I guess it's all propaganda because they were propagandized through their Schofield Bibles, which Jacob Rothschild, if you know who this character is, was instrumental in. The Rothschild family was very instrumental in the Schofield Bible, which kind of reworded some things to kind of change things from the people of Israel to Israel, the geographic location, essentially. That anyone who's like, you had Ted Cruz. Did you see? You saw the Ted Cruz thing.
That one to me was so like.
That's not fringe. Just saying.
And that was the shock part to me was there were people being like, "Whoa, this is an explosive interview," and it's like, dude, no offense, man. Where have you been for the past
Yeah, sure. Remember, we're engaging with boomers right now. So.
Yeah, my take honestly is, I can understand it. I guess.
Sure.
It's because again, it's like, listen, if you were propagandized, that's not your fault. I will acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Oh, baby, sorry, my cat's like biting me now.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I see it as it's I won't hold them to blame for everything because it's like, we all have our faults. I'm propagandized in some ways, etc.
Of course.
But it's like I just do the thing where it's like, I don't know, man. But I hope they don't have regret, and I think they do. You know what I mean? And that's like probably the worst feeling to have outside of maybe hate. Is regret because there's some things you can't change. And it's like, guys, there's some things you can never change now. And that goes from Reagan's amnesty to us not doing like just insane level deportations using the full power of the state. But when it comes to this, specifically the state of Israel, that's what I think it is they never learned that Israel is the church and the nation state of Israel created in 1948 or whatever it was, 47. And I just think it's one of those things where it's like, you should have learned it, guys. I don't know what to say, man, but we're people are changing. People don't stay the same forever, right?
Yeah.
So it sucks to suck,
It sucks to suck, but I think that is part of why they have this blind support for the Israeli government. The way that they do is.
They're conditioned to.
Yeah, they're conditioned to, but through their religion in some regards, I mean, through the Protestant evangelical wing of the American culture anyway, like they need to see the greater Israel come to fruition so the apocalypse of John can come true, and Jesus can come back and he can, fight the Antichrist at Megiddo and the war for salvation and all that stuff. I don't think that's a small, as Ted Cruz demonstrated, he didn't even understand it, but like
It was wild.
he demonstrated that there is a large population of people, 50 and above mostly, that hold that view. And what is the Orthodox view on that?
Oh no, we're very traditional. We do not believe I mean, you can go back to the church fathers. We're very I won't say militant, but we're very strict. We adhere strongly to the faith.
Very Orthodox.
Exactly. We're Orthodox, unchanged. And there's a book written by St. John of Chrysostom, and St. John of Chrysostom wrote the Divine Liturgy, right? So like he's a church father. He's very, very significant to us. And the book is called Adversus Judaeus. And in English, it means against the Jews. And what it is, it's a book. It's a series of homilies that's put together in a book, which is preventing what's called the Judaism or the Judaizing of Christianity. Because back then they were trying to install the law more over the gospel. And it's like, no, guys, we have the gospel. The law doesn't trump or triumph over the gospel.
Yeah.
And what's happening right now, by the way, like, look at all these
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I bring it up.
So the Orthodox Church, we're very anti the world. Like there's actually an old Orthodox zine called Death. I think it's called Deaths of the World. And that's what it's about. It's about the death of this material world that we live in. We're not spiritual. We live in the world. Death to the world. And it's kind of edgy. It's kind of kind of hardcore. There's a YouTube channel called Harmony, and they do a lot of Orthodox videos. Kind of deep, very, very just like thought provoking. Jay Dyer, huge fan of him. He's on Twitter and YouTube. But I will say that, put it this way: when the Russian and Ukraine war kicked off, our priest was very much like, he just said it at the very end, because we do the entire liturgy, and at the end he'll do like his, a very brief sermon, kind of recapping like, hey, this is what we just talked about, But he says it as, and I just hope this nonsense stops. Like these are, because it was very brief, because it's Orthodox Christians and Orthodox Christians fighting, killing each other. We don't like that at all. So that was that. October 8th, or whatever the first Sunday was after October 7th.
Yeah.
We've never talked about it ever, because Islam and Judaism are not Christianity. And we do not believe in the Abrahamic God. We do not believe it. My priest has told me, actually, I once got spiritual guidance right before confession. We were talking about things. He's like, hey, what you struggling with? And I'm talking about it. He's helping me out, read some books, do some fasting, whatever. And he gives me his breakdown, and is about, Protestants. My thing was like, I don't agree with a lot of these things they say. Like they're telling me like to have faith and be patient. I'm like, I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense to me. If you have faith, I think that's what makes you have to act. Faith and works. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
And he was agreeing with me. He's like, Aaron, I don't even believe. He started out by saying this: I don't want American schools to have prayer back inside of them. And I was just kind of like, okay, Father, why is that? Why is that, priest? And he's like, because who's doing the praying? It's like, these are Protestant prayers. And he's like, I don't even think they believe in the same God as us. No, it's just like, dude, I thought I was edgy. It's like, wow, he's not saying it to hate them, or to say like, I'm better than thou. But this is where I always say too. Politics is downstream of culture. True, culture is downstream of theology, and I think that's where it lands at, basically. So my take there is, we don't, what we pray for? We pray for people to stop dying, especially the children, and we pray for their conversion to Christ. Yeah. That's what we do for Orthodoxy when it comes to Israel, Palestine, Gaza, etc. I'm not gonna lie to you, I have probably a heavier heart for Gaza, and I can weigh that by the amount of kids dead.
Sure. At least 17,000 according to Haaretz.
Yeah, so this is not okay. And I'm saying that too from a military background. And they proved this with Iran. They can do targeted strikes. They know how to isolate certain strikes. What they did in Gaza wasn't that. And it's just like, I'm not stupid. It's
Hamas's fault, bro.
And that's where I just go like, okay, let's see how that works out in the future. Let's see how your judgment works for you with that argument.
Sure.
When you die and Christ is talking to you.
So from my objective outside of the religious analysis of our incestuous relationship with Israel and our I weigh things again, my morals and principles, which you could say, like I said, I was raised Catholic, so there's inescapable that they come from that framework. And I see the murder of children by this government, even setting their religion aside. But if I take their religion into account, Judaism into account, still to me it's an oppositional from a Christian standpoint. Like, I mean, if you ask these rabbinical Jews, I mean, that
Rejection of Christ,
that they reject Christ, which I believe is, and they're aware of him, obviously, so they reject him. I mean, that's the only unforgivable sin, like, I don't understand how Christians square that, other than, oh, these were God's original chosen people. Somehow they're unaware of the new covenant, I guess, which is the whole basis for Christianity, but that they're still God's favored people. I don't, maybe it's what I talked about earlier, where people have these, they believe these things, but they don't know why, because, like, where do your morals and principles come from? Well, I'm a Christian.
But that's on them at the same time, though, too, because I was an atheist from 2010 up until 2020. And that's when I was just like, there's a lot of things happening right now, and I don't know what's going on. I think we're living in a lot of lies. And that's when I started challenging everything about myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, you know what? I'm sorry. If I can do it, you can do it too. It's one of those things where it's like, I can understand the propagandized part. I really can. Sucks to suck. But it's like, but what did you do? If you never challenge yourself, again, sucks to suck. I don't tell you, but I hope they don't have regret. But like everybody else, I hope they, have mercy, or they ask for mercy. They, repent, and et cetera. But
I do not understand the Christian Protestant love for the Jewish faith and people. Like, I mean, they'll tell you themselves what they think about you, and that Christ is burning in hell in a pile of flaming feces, and you're like, he's our greatest ally. Just like, okay.
And again, like, this is where before October 7th, 2023, I shared a few stories from some Orthodox channel on Twitter of I think one of them was dated 2019 and one was dated like maybe 2021. And it was the Israeli government taking over monasteries and churches from the Greek and Antioch Orthodox Church. And I'm like, I'm not okay with that. Like, they're taking away churches, guys. Like, no offense, I'm opposed to that.
Yeah, with American weapons, which is what I'm opposed to. But yeah,
right. So when the Bolsheviks did it in Russia, it's like that. I would have been opposed to that. You know what I mean? And
who are also largely chosen people, the Bolsheviks.
Right. And that was I think, like, mostly Ashkenazi and Sephardic or something like that. I read the book on it once, but I don't remember the deets. But again, I just go back to them. What's your faith? What have you been taught? That's why I ask people, like, well, what church you belong to? And they'll say it. Okay, when that one start? And I'll do the meme. Who founded whatever church, and the Catholic and the Orthodox Church, because we did split schism, etc.
Sure.
Says, founder is Jesus Christ.
Yeah, correct.
Lutheran Church, John Luther. Who's the whatever church? Somebody else, etc., etc.
Yeah,
so that's when I believe in apostolic succession.
My favorite church, just as a side note, is the Episcopalians. They're my favorite because they'll have like a openly gay Jewish. I think they do call them priests, which is like, I've read the book, and I just don't see how we're reading the same books here. And I get there are some differences, but like, they're not that different where you're going to have a gay woman leading church, like that is fucking haram.
No, it's like, and that's why I tell people, I'm like, it's not to say they can't be Christians. It's like, they can, but you have to repent. You have to live your life according to the gospel. Yeah. Like, like, these are things that do matter. Yeah. So, but they also believe in a lot of things that I just don't. One of them is the once saved, always saved. And I told them this once. I was like, okay, so if I get saved and I go out there and I blaspheme the Holy Spirit, the unforgivable sin, you're telling me that, like, I'm
still saved?
Yeah. And I always ask my priest these questions, or other, like, kind of like senior Orthodox people, just to bounce off them. And I don't know, that's the way I go. It's very inclusive community. We do evangelize. It's part of our thing too. We do talk about it. My big thing is always, I never want to drive somebody away. So to me, it's like the only people I'm ever aggressive with, not aggressive in a bad way, but like, willing to engage very deeply are atheists, because I came from that.
Yeah,
When
yeah, sure.
Protestants, I'll just say it, like, why don't you check out the Eastern Orthodox Church?
Yeah.
I'll leave
So
it there.
what, like I asked you earlier, what is a Christian to you?
I mean, straight up, I would say following the teachings and the traditions of the Eastern Orthodox Church.
Okay.
And that starts with our sacraments, our 7 sacraments. And you don't have to do them all to be considered a Christian, but it's baptism, chrismation, communion, and confession. Those are the 4 that like everybody should be hitting.
Sure.
And then there's marriage. There is the anointing of the sick, or like basically when you die, and then the priesthood. And those are our 7 sacraments. And if I'm wrong on that, I'm sorry. It's been a while. But for our big thing also is, it's like, you can be born in the church. You can, when you're born, your first 40 days, you do your first 3 sacraments. But
so by that rationale, you don't consider like a oneness Pentecostal person a Christian?
No, I consider Pentecostal.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Catholics I do, and only because a schism is different than a heresy, even though I think they're kind of similar. So like, I talked to a Catholic buddy of mine about this, because he asked me one time, I was like, what's the difference between Orthodoxy and Catholicism? I'm like, dude, it's like 4 things, but they're kind of huge. It's like, it's our creed, and the main one obviously is the Filioque. That's a huge thing, which I don't even talk about, because it's like, you're talking at a level beyond me. But that's why the creed starts off with I believe, or we believe. So it's like, when you want to talk about the triune God and the energies and the persons, etc., it's like, talk to somebody smarter. I'll never debate a Catholic on the Filioque. I'll just say, if you're curious, go ask a priest.
But I respect your position, because your position is exclusionary, which I feel a lot of Christians don't exclude people.
It's very exclusionary.
I mean, if you read the Bible, it's very exclusionary.
It's not.
No. That's not what I'm saying.
Man, if you're doing that.
Yeah, but there's very clear delineations to, you're one of us or you're not. Like to be one of us, like to be a Catholic, yeah, you're going to go through you're going to be baptized, you're going to go through communion, you're going to go through catechism, you're going to go through all these things, and then you will be one of us. You can be one of us. And if you don't do those things, you are not one of us. Like, it's not like, I've gone to some churches, some non-denominational, very feely good churches that like, you're all God's children. Okay, true. But to say you're all Christians, well, there's going to be some things that have to be true about you for me to say that about you. And this is coming from me. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a believer. But I still think that if you're going to have these principles that are built on this, whatever, name the religion, you have to point out and be honest about those things and say when people are not those things. I mean, then I can respect you, and then we can have an honest conversation, versus like the Episcopalians were like, oh, this gay woman, she's a Christian. I mean, okay. Is she sinning? Her lifestyle sinning? Like, is it just direct conflict with your purported foundational documents? Yes, the answer is yes. It has to be yes, because we're talking about reality here. It's not what feels good. This is like, the Bible is an objective third standard. It's not your standard. It's an objective third standard. Yeah,
and that's where. But it's like, you can always go to it, being like, okay, well, what did Christ say to the woman at the well? Go and sin no more.
Yeah.
That's not him asking or recommending. That wasn't a parable.
That's an order. That's an order.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We do call them the statutes. That's part of our songs we do is oh man, I'm blanking now, but it's teach me your statutes.
Sure.
It's like, statute is a very precise word. You know what I mean? It's like, that doesn't just mean teach me your ideas and your lessons. Like, no, statutes have a level of, doing type stuff. Yeah. And we don't believe in works equals salvation. We believe in faith is salvation, but if you have faith, you have to have works. If you don't do works, you don't have faith.
Yeah.
That's why they're together. We don't separate faith and works. But it's like, it's usually about a year-long process to go through to be a catechumen.
Sure.
To inquire a catechumen, and then, whenever the priest says, like, I think you got it, you're good. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm sure you can tell, I kind of dive into things. I never like tip my toes in it. So when I was like, okay, atheism is wrong. Mm-hmm. What's real? What's true?
Sure.
quickly was able to deduce like, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, whatever, Christianity. And I'm like, what is that? I don't even know it really. And I really went through it. And that's when I landed on Orthodoxy based on its, history, unchanged doctrine, logic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I want to do a theology episode with you and deep dive that stuff more. But we're running out of time here. We're at 1:39. Just to wrap it up, because our last podcast that we did together was on what Iran could turn into, right?
Yeah.
So after everything that's happened, bombing Fordo, Natanz, I always fuck the last one up. I've something or other. Yeah, the third one. We did bomb them. Trump even called it a 12-day war. I don't know if you caught Tucker's interview with the president, not the Ayatollah, the president of Iran. He put that out.
I don't watch that.
A couple days ago. Yeah, it's. I don't think it was nothing. I didn't get anything out of it, other than they're willing to negotiate, which they clearly were willing to negotiate because Israel wiped out their negotiation team. So they had a negotiation team. So where do you feel, or what do you think about that current situation? Is that situation just resolved?
No.
Okay, good. Thank God.
That's where it's not over. My understanding, actually, I thought I saw something happening recently where they said, I think DD Geopolitics on Telegram posted a video where it was some Iranian whatever, and it could have been a spiritual leader, it could have been a government official, I don't know, but it said something about negotiations, and they were like, yeah, we saw last time we negotiated with you guys, we're not doing that again.
Yeah, so why would they?
Exactly. So I think they're going to continue doing what they're going to do, and I think we're eventually going to strike them again. I think Israel's going to strike them again. I think there's going to be it's not over. Yeah, that's what I feel very confident saying. It's not over.
Good. So the boomers are saying it's over. Trump did it. He's the great, peace through strength, brought peace to the region. And I'm like, it's way too early for that, guys. This is George W. Bush in 2003, mission accomplished stuff, that you guys are.
My thing's like, okay, guys, go for it, because I'm very dismissive to a lot of people now where it's like, they say their thing. I'm like, I'm not trying to convince you to join my team, guys. Like, exclusionary. If you believe that, you're never going to join my side, because how much effort will that take? And by the time you get to my side, how much you're going to slow us down?
Yeah, it's
like,
true.
Most people are passive support, and that's what you're going to end up being, is passive support.
Yeah.
So
I hope they're right, but I don't think they're right. So, based on very good reason and evidence. Okay, well, I guess we're on the same page with that. I guess we'll see what kind of develops. But Israel really wants this war, and if the last 25 years is any litmus test, they get the wars they want. So,
it could just be the outcome that they get, which is a destabilized and/or whatever Iran. It might become a more of a severe economic pressure campaign, whatever. But I still think, because of the weapons, I think we're going to strike again.
Yeah,
because I don't think we've knocked out their nuclear capabilities or their whatever.
And if they weren't trying for the bomb before, they should be. If I was the president, I would be trying my ass off now. If I learned from Gaddafi, if I learned from Kim Jong-il, I would be trying to get that fucking bomb.
I can imagine they're hyperspeed right now. Yeah.
So the only two outcomes I can see now are they get the bomb and we stop fucking with them, like we did with everyone else that went nuclear, or we regime change. Those are the only two things I can see possibly happening.
Yeah.
That's it. Those are the only two options.
I don't want to see either.
That's the most likely, and I think Nick Fuentes agrees with me, which is not a good sign. But yeah. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens with that, dude. We covered a lot of shit in this podcast. Anything you want to end off? Let's say, what is your message to the boomers?
Two things: Crisis King, and definitely, again, one more time, is this:
that's anti-Semitism.
Americans do not deserve a country if they don't act like a people. Kayli Grace Arseth, December 28th, 2002 to June 16th, 2025.
That's fucking wild, dude.
It's insane. I know I coached girls her age in soccer just like a decade ago.
Another casualty of the melting pot, guys. It's a failed experiment. It's failed a long time ago. It's going to keep failing in this fashion until you, what do you call it? Suicidal empathy. Like, you feel so bad for these people. How many daughters, how many sons, how much of your wealth, how much of your country are you willing to sacrifice for this melting pot farce? Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. It's a good place to end it, dude.
I mean,
Thanks for coming on, dude. Fucking
always.
boom. One way out. This is episode 51. Fuck.